A Matter of Luck. A program dedicated to the greatest inventor and scientific discoverer the world has known, Lady Luck, and bringing you in one complete 30-minute presentation two authentic and true stories of remarkable scientific achievement. Tonight we tell you of Louis Daguerre and the Albers brothers, and how they became famous through A Matter of Luck. Louis Daguerre and A Matter of Luck. The students of Paris in 1823 differed very little from those of today. They were traditionally penniless, unconventional in behavior and dress, and given to embracing advanced political theories and far-fetched philosophies. But one of them, young Louis Daguerre, decided that while starving in a garret was all very well in its way, there was also a great deal to be said for prosperity and comfort, particularly when one was newly married. So he obtained a job, scene painting for the Paris theaters, and soon found himself a great success with orders for his work pouring in from right and left. So, too, was the money. On a certain day in 1823, Louis Daguerre was at work in the theater when...
Jean-Louis de Bonnet, that is terrible but terrible. We are erecting scenery for Othello, the Maud of Venice, are we not?
Yes, Monsieur Daguerre.
Then consider, this Moor, this Othello, he is...
Ah, my friend Louis Daguerre, the trouble I've had. The doorman, that veritable Cerberus, refused me admittance.
I, too, have my troubles with workmen like de Bonnet here.
Good morning to you, Paul. What brings you to the theatre? Oh, a new fashion, a new craze that I couldn't wait to show you. Louis, this is the most fascinating thing.
Another fad from the Latin Quarter, I have no doubt. What is this thing?
Sun portraits.
Sun portraits, eh? And what may they be?
Oh, let me describe them to you. The portrait is made by coating the face with flour.
One moment, my friend.
Jean-Louis de Bonnet! Will you be kind as to stop that infernal hammering?
Now, as you were saying, Paul.
Oh, yes. One coats the face with flour and sits motionless for half an hour in front of the camera, a contrivance like a box. Then certain things are done. And lo, there is the likeness of the sitter. I tell you, my friend, it will sweep the world.
So it will sweep the world, eh? Tell me, Paul, where does this sitting petrified for half an hour take place?
Where? Why, out in the sun, of course. The sun must be bright and hot and the day cloudless. There, are you not intrigued?
There's one thing you seem to forget, my poor Paul. I am no longer a starving painter on the left bank, but a prosperous, respectable citizen. The days when I leap in the air for every new fad are gone. Now away with you, there's work to be done. We open this very night, and look about you, not a scene ready.
What has become of the Louis Daguerre of 2 years ago? Oh, well, au revoir. Louis.
Yes?
I'm expecting a draft of money from home, but at the moment, well, you could perhaps spare a few francs?
How much is it this time?
20?
Here you are.
Oh, thank you.
It's a good thing that one of our old crowd has his head screwed on properly, eh, Paul? I must be supporting half the Latin Quarter.
1,000 thanks, Louis. Be sure I shall not forget you. Au revoir.
Oh, Paul, before you go, what were those things called?
Sun portraits. But you're not interested, are you?
I? Interested in such nonsense? Of course not. Ah, monsieur. This is the best scientific library in Paris, is it not?
Assuredly, monsieur.
Look, I require some information on the new science of the camera and sun portraits.
With pleasure. There are new pamphlets which tell all that is to be known. A fascinating subject, monsieur. First, one coats the face with flour, then sits in the sun for 30 minutes by the clock. Meantime, the man with the camera...
Good morning to you, apothecary. I wish to purchase the chemicals needed for experiments in sun portraiture.
Yes, monsieur. You are interested in the new science.
Oh, just a passing fancy, that's all. A hobby, you might say.
And a most wonderful one, if I may say so. First you coat the face with flour. Then you go outside and sit in the sun for half an hour, and then...
Despite himself, the subject of sun portraiture grew on Louis Daguerre, and although he embraced it first in a mood of idle curiosity, soon it occupied his attention to the exclusion of all else. He allowed his scene painting, of which he had become the foremost exponent in Paris, to fall into neglect, and as his income dwindled, he drew on his fortune to support the expense of his endless experiments. He made a number of discoveries, among them the use of silver iodide to shorten the time of exposure. But this was a minor step forward, and as his wife saw their financial position going from bad to worse, she became a violent opponent of his work.
Louis Daguerre, I am now satisfied that you are nothing but a madman.
Yes, my little flower. Where did I put my silver solution?
Never mind your silver solution. I demand your attention, this moment.
Very well, but I can ill spare the time to listen. The experiments go well. Soon we shall be rich.
Louis, leave your horrid mixtures alone. Go back to your scene painting again. Let us eat duck again. Oh, how my mouth waters for a fat roast duck.
You shall have it, my dear, when my experiments are successful.
I should have you locked up for a lunatic. Yes, and I have another bone to pick with you, Louis Daguerre. I have smeared my face with flour for the last time. No more will I sit ruining my complexion, of which you were once so proud. Never again.
Then, if I find another model, please do not accuse me of being unfaithful.
None of your student loosenesses before me, if you please.
As you say, a little shrew. And now may I get back to work? Now, where did you put my silver iodide? And the plates, they too are gone. Come, where are they?
In a place where you'll never find them.
Daguerre did not know it, but his wife's opposition was the most fortunate thing that could have happened to him. For when the assistant Niepce arrived that day...
Ah, my good Niepce, you are here at last. Today I've done nothing but search the house for my chemicals. I can't find them anywhere.
You mislaid them, Daguerre.
Aye. On the contrary, my wife has been at pains to hide them from me. Oh, she's hidden them somewhere or thrown them out. By heaven, if she has thrown them out, I'll break her pretty little neck.
She disapproves, then. And so does mine, for the stains of my hands and the ruin of my clothes. Ah, well, that is women for you. Who can blame them?
Who can blame them, indeed? Ah, at last. Now we can start. You see what I have done? I have found our bottles, our plates, and they were hidden here in this cupboard. You see?
I see. Ah, what a woman to stoop to such a trick.
It would be as well to keep this little nook a secret, eh?
A secret it shall be. Oh, but will any harm come from having so many chemicals in the one place? The fumes from one mixing with the fumes from another.
Oh, that's a risk we must take, my friend. Now then, to work. Oh, what do you think of the sun today? Can we go to the park as usual?
Well, the sun is hot while it shines, but the clouds, they blow over quickly and obscure it.
Oh, it's shining now, at all events, and hotly, too. So we'll try. Gather the equipment.
And Madame? She accompanies us to sit before the camera?
No, we've had a little mutiny there. But I know of a young woman who will oblige us. She is Viennese. Attractive, too, Niepce. Oh. We might do well, photographically speaking. An excellent day for exposures, Niepce. If only the clouds will stay away from the sun. And now, mademoiselle, you will sit here, and I will cover your face with flour. Niepce, the flour bag, if you please.
With flour, monsieur? Oh, but I never use flour. It will ruin my skin. I shall look horrible.
You? Never. Come, it will not harm your skin. But even so, am I not paying you a good fee?
I have received nothing yet, nor am I likely to.
Let us say, then, that I am owing you a good fee. And now sit still while I apply the flour. That's the girl. My, how soft your skin is. How very soft.
Daguerre, keep your mind on photography.
What? Oh, of course. There.
The camera is ready.
Monsieur, please tell that little boy standing watching to go away. I could not sit still.
Go away, little boy, before the lady bites you. Grrr.
And that is better. He has gone.
Now for the exposure, Nips. I'll time it. Ready? Now. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, look! The cloud goes before the sun.
Were I a swearing man, I should say damnation. That's a plate wasted. Oh, cover the camera, Nips. Expose 2 seconds and ruined. You may relax, mademoiselle. Relax until the sun reappears, when we shall try again. Fascinating hobby.
There were no more exposures that day, and Daguerre returned home to hide his gear from his wife. The plate that he thought ruined by its short exposure, he put in the cupboard with the chemicals, thinking it might be possible to use it for something later on. Now, it must be understood that although Daguerre had experimented for years, photography, as we know it, was a crude and haphazard procedure then. Developing was unknown, and long exposures were needed to obtain a faint image, which soon faded. Daguerre had searched in vain for a chemical which would fix or develop a portrait once the plate had been exposed. It took Lady Luck to show him how this could be done. The day after his fruitless attempt to photograph his model in the park, he and Niepce went to their cupboard to start work again.
Niepce, we shall require the strong and the weak iodides, the oil of...
Daguerre!
Yes, what is it, man?
Look at this plate. Is this the one we exposed yesterday? Look at it.
But I don't understand this, Niepce. It was exposed for but a minute or so. Why, and look, a perfect portrait of our lovely little Viennese model. How do you account for that, Niepce?
Oh, I cannot account for it. There should be no picture on that plate at all. None after so short an exposure.
Yet there is. A better picture than we've ever had before. Now, what could have happened in the cupboard? Niepce, I have it. Some one of these many chemicals is the fixer, the developer I've searched for all those years. Now, which is it?
There is but one way to discover.
Correct. There is but one way to discover, as you say. Every day we will expose a plate and place it in the cupboard. Each successive day we will remove one chemical. And when we find a plate undeveloped, the last chemical we removed will be the culprit, the one we want. You agree?
I agree. Now, let us make a start, Daguerre. We're on the verge of a great discovery.
Daguerre carried out his plan, but fortune still had a card to play. Each day he placed an exposed plate in his cupboard, and each day removed a chemical. But every morning there was an excellent picture. At last there was only one substance left, and that too was removed. According to Daguerre's reasoning, the plate that was then placed in the now empty cupboard should be undeveloped. But when he looked in the morning...
Niepce, my wife once described me as a madman, and I begin to suspect that she was right. Here is a plate that has stood overnight in an empty cabinet. Yet it's been developed. By what, I ask you, by what?
On the top shelf here, monsieur. Something has been spilt. Can you see it?
One moment, I'll bring a chair. Now we see. Aha. There's been quicksilver spilt up here. Quicksilver. Mercury. There, success at last. Mercury vapor is our developer, Niepce. Mercury vapor. Fortune has smiled at last.
And it had, for his discovery had made him a wealthy man. It was mercury vapor that had so mysteriously been developing Louis Daguerre's plates, and it was a succession of lucky circumstances that had shown it to him. The Daguerre-type portrait, some of which may be seen to this very day, was the forerunner of modern photography, and in a short time was in fashionable and popular demand. Daguerre's second fortune was made, and he died rich and successful. But had he not crowded all his chemicals into one cupboard, and had not some mercury been spilt on one of its shelves, he might have searched the rest of his days without making his discovery, which, as you have heard, was not a matter of intent. It was just a matter of luck.
In just 1 minute, we shall tell you our second fascinating story, that of the Albers brothers. In the meantime, a word from our announcer.
Back now to our narrator and cast for the second unusual but true story in our great program, A Matter of Luck.
The Albers brothers and A Matter of Luck. "13 years ago, the president of one of America's largest radio manufacturers had what seemed to him a brand new and brilliant idea. It had limitless possibilities and worldwide scope, and he rubbed his hands together thinking of the wonderful march he was going to steal on his competitors. So he called for his chief engineer and described his scheme in general terms, only to learn that he had been forestalled back in the 20s by two brothers who lived on a farm in Iowa, John and Gerhard Albers. The Albers boys were country-bred and homely, but by their shrewdness and native wit, and aided by Lady Luck, they had developed a splendid idea long before it was thought of by the foremost engineers of the day. Gerhard was the elder by 4 years, and John was nearing his 21st birthday as the story begins, when they sat listening on their battery-powered radio set to a baseball game from New York. The farm in Iowa had no electricity, and they had to turn the set to its full volume to hear the distant broadcast.
"You two lazy galoots, what are you doing in there?"
Ain't but a minute and we'll be through, Pa. Just to listening to the ball game from New York.
"Doggone it, you flattening them batteries again, listening to New York? What's wrong with the music from Sioux City? You tell me that."
Ain't nothing wrong, but it ain't like a big ball game. Here she comes again.
I don't hear no ball game. Now you get and feed them hogs. A-wasting time instead of doing your chores. You reckon them hogs is going to come to the barn and feed themselves?
Okay, Pa. Okay. Well, batteries are flat anyway.
Just like I said. You listening to New York and them batteries go flat quicker than you can skin a cat. Then when your ma wants to sit a-listening, well, there ain't no electricity.
Okay, Pa. Come on, John. We better get down to the corn. Get it up to the hogs.
I'll say. Wait a minute. You got $1, Gerhard?
You got $1, John?
No, ain't got but 2 bits.
No, Pa. Ain't got but 70 cents between us.
Then who's going to pay for them batteries to be charged?
Oh, gee, Pa.
That's what I reckon. You boys empty them batteries, and I got to find $1. And listening to your ma asking why there ain't no music from Sioux City. Now you get it working right now. 3 hours to sundown, and you're listening to a ball game.
That was the bugbear with the radio set on the Albers farm, and as a matter of fact, on any other farm in those days. Father Albers, not as enthusiastic about newfangled things as his own two sons, begrudged the frequent dollar he was obliged to find to keep the batteries charged. And the brothers begrudged the 2 or 3 days broadcasting they had to miss while the charging was done at the local garage.
Hey, Gerhard, what time you taking them batteries into town tomorrow?
Ain't my turn. Sure.
Ain't so. I took them in twice when you were courting Rosa Shawn skittering.
Doggone, you got a memory like one of these here elephants. Okay. Only I wish them batteries weren't so danged heavy. They cut your hands in halves.
I'll tell you something, Gerhard. If you go to Zeb Watt's store tomorrow when you're in town, I reckon you'll have time. If you go to Zeb's store and get me one of them old magazines he sells, I'll milk the cows tonight for you in exchange.
Okay, John. Reckon that's a deal. Reckon I never did take kindly to milking cows.
The two brothers little thought that the magazine Gerhard was to bring home would change the course of their lives, would take them from the hard routine of the farm to wealth and interesting careers. But that was the luck of it. For the next night...
What's the matter with you tonight, John? Ain't ate none of your hominy grits.
Oh, it's this here magazine Gerhard brought home, Ma. Mighty interesting reading, this here.
You can read plenty after supper. Now eat up your grits.
Oh, okay, Ma.
You boys always got something on your minds. If it ain't Gerhard a mooning over Rosa Shawn skittering, it's you with your nose in a book.
Oh, leave the boys be, Ma. Never was no harm in courting or reading. Wished I'd have had more time for book learning.
You had plenty of time for courting, though, Henry Albers. Reckon you was the courtingest man in town.
Say, Gerhard, get a load of this.
What do you got there? Well, how do you like that? Listen, Pa, here's some guys at a big eastern university built themselves a wind machine. A wind tunnel, they call it.
What do they want a wind machine for? Stand on top of Crook's Hill, they'll get all the wind they want.
Yeah, Pa, but this is for testing airplanes. They put a model airplane in and turn on the engine. It blows wind through the tunnel at more than 100 miles an hour, it says here. Gee, with a doggone great propeller.
What drives the propeller? A gas engine?
No. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. A 200 horsepower electric motor.
Well, I reckon that's mighty interesting. They turn electricity into wind, hey? Well, what'll they think of next?
Pity there ain't no way to turn wind back to electricity. And I wouldn't have had to tote them batteries into town today, seeing you didn't let me take the Ford.
Now that's enough talk. I never did see such a family for talking. Eat up your hominy grits before they get cold.
Oh, but Gerhard, why couldn't you turn wind into electricity, like a windmill? Yeah, a windmill to turn a generator. We want one, and I reckon thousands of other folks on farms would want one. Gosh, maybe we'll make some money out of the idea. Gosh!
From the scores and scores of old magazines of all kinds on the shelves of the country store, Gerhard had, by the purest luck, chosen the one describing a wind tunnel, and the brothers' idea was born. They decided that if a wind could be obtained from an electrically driven propeller, then the natural wind could be made to drive a generator. And the farm work went neglected while they set about putting their theories into action. From a Sioux City junkyard, they bought scrap iron to build a tower, and on this they mounted an old motor car generator. But soon they encountered their main problem.
I never did see such calm weather as we've been getting since we put up our tower, Gerhard.
That's the way it goes, boy. If we wanted calm weather, we'd get a doggone tornado every day. No, it seems to me this idea of ours ain't going to be much use if the propeller won't turn without a strong wind.
Sure, that's right. What we got to do is figure out a propeller shape to spin in every kind of wind, even if it ain't no more than a whisper.
Yeah, but if we have to wait for windy days to test every propeller, we're going to be older than Uncle Zeke before we hittin' the right one.
Yeah, well, maybe we ought to forget all about it. Say, here comes Pa back from town. Reckon we better look as if we been a-working.
That was their stumbling block. Unaided by expert knowledge and proper means of testing, the brothers could not fashion the correct aerofoil, the delicate contours their propeller needed to spin briskly in a light wind. The lazy turning of the conventional windmill blades was useless. Their generator had to turn much faster before it would deliver electricity in usable amounts. But Lady Luck was still on their side, and she appeared with their father as he drove up in his old T-model Ford.
You boys been a-working or a-whittling?
Been doing a piece of whittling, Pa. Trying to get this here propeller set to rights. Say, you must have been pushing the Ford along some. She's a-boiling her head clean off.
I've been a-driving real slow. Reckon there must be something wrong. You take a look under the hood, John.
Okay, Pa. Well, doggone. No wonder she's a-boiling. The fan belt's busted. Busted right through. When I lifted the hood, the fan was still turning a piece.
What? The fan turning with the fan belt busted?
Yeah. I reckon the wind coming in through the radiator when Pa was driving along must have kept it turning.
Uh-huh. Guess it would at that. Say, John, Pa!
Now what's gotten into you?
Now I know how to test out our propellers.
Oh, now how you going to do it, boy?
Well, that busted fan belt with the fan still turning gave me the notion. Pa, we're going to mount our propellers on top of the Ford and drive up and down the road. That gives us all the kind of wind we want, from a breeze to a storm.
The brothers mounted their propeller on their old car and treated a scoffing neighborhood to the sight of them driving up and down with it whirling above their heads. By trimming here and cutting there, they soon achieved an amazingly efficient air screw, whose tips moved 13 times as fast as the wind that impelled it. And from that day, their fortunes were made.
Hey, Ma, take a look at this. Another 20 orders for our electric windmills. Oh, boy. How would you like $1 million, Pa? Reckon we'll have to build us a factory.
Well, Ma, I reckon we raised us a pair of bright boys at that. Yes, sir, brightest and brainiest boys in Iowa.
Well, for mine, I reckon we had more luck than brain, Pa. We're the luckiest guys. That's what I say. Just lucky.
Yes, the Albers brothers, Gerhard and John, were clever, but they were lucky, too. Their wind-driven battery chargers were soon to be seen on farms all over the countryside, as they may be seen on farms throughout the world today. It was not a world-shaking invention, and it used no revolutionary principles, but to farmers the world over it was a welcome boon. And yet, had Gerhard chosen a different magazine that day in the store, had the old Ford not boiled just at the proper time, they might have given up their windmill generator and still be working on their farm. Their original conception and their success were not so much a matter of intent. They were a matter of luck.
The two authentic stories of the discovery of the photographic developer and wind generators were dramatized by Lindsay J. Hardy from Factual Research Material and were directed by Donovan Joyce. The performers included Junie Cornell, Alan Trevor, Leonard Bullen, Richard Ashley, John O'Malley, Douglas Herold, Warwick Ritchie, and Grant Taylor. Your narrator was Ward Leopold, who invites you to listen again 1 week from now, same night, time, and station, for a further fascinating half hour of A Matter of Luck, a Donovan Joyce production.
A Matter of Luck. A program dedicated to the greatest inventor and scientific discoverer the world has known, Lady Luck, and bringing you in one complete 30-minute presentation 2 authentic and true stories of remarkable scientific achievement. Tonight we tell you of the philosopher Cuneus and Elias Howe, and how each became famous through A Matter of Luck. Cuneus and A Matter of Luck. In 1746, the natural philosopher Cuneus was seldom seen abroad in the quiet streets of the university town of Leyden in Holland. All his time was devoted to experiments, scientific experiments whose object was to lay bare the secrets of the natural elements, water, fire, and the new and mysterious force of electricity. But during one of his rare walks, fate decreed that he should be caught in a storm, a thunderstorm of unseasonable intensity and violence.
On my soul, what scurvy mischance of fate is this? Not once in a season do I venture out on foot, and I must choose such a day as this. I shall be wet to the skin.
Hola, Mynheer!
I cannot tarry, sir. Already I am well nigh soaked.
Come inside my house for shelter, quickly. Here, this way.
You are more than kind, Mynheer. 1,000 thanks.
But hurry. Let us close the door against the rain.
Another moment, and I should have been as wet as one doused in the canal. Whose kindness have I to thank?
Oh, allow me to introduce myself. Peter van Musschenbroek at your service.
Peter van Musschenbroek? Of the university? The distinguished lecturer in chemistry?
That is so, Mynheer.
Then we are well met. My name is Cuneus, and I share many of your interests in the natural sciences.
It's an ill wind, or should I say thunderstorm, that blows no good, eh?
Who is it, Peter? Have we a guest?
Oh, it's my wife, Mynheer. Come and meet Mynheer Cuneus, my dear. He's taking shelter from the storm. Allow me to present my wife, sir.
It is a great pleasure, Frau Musschenbroek. Your husband is more than kind.
It is our good fortune to be of service, sir. But you are wet, soaking wet. Draw up to the fire while I bring hot towels and soap. We cannot have our new friend take an ague at his first visit, can we, Peter? Now, I shan't be more than a minute.
The chance meeting of Cuneus and Musschenbroek grew into close friendship, a friendship that was to result in the discovery of momentous significance. In 1746, electricity was still a mysterious plaything in the laboratories of Europe. Scientists knew that if a glass rod were rubbed with silk, tiny sparks could be produced and small pieces of paper made to dance under some strange compulsion. This force they called electricity, from the Greek word meaning to attract. But what it really was, they had no idea. But Cuneus and Muschenbroek began work together, experimenting in Muschenbroek's home as often as in his laboratory at the university. There they had to cope with Muschenbroek's father-in-law, an elderly gentleman who did not see eye to eye with the two investigators.
Now, my dear Peter, are we ready to proceed?
Don't ask him anything. Go your own way. Bless my soul, if I'd known what my daughter was getting into, marrying a fellow like Muschenbroek here.
Oh, be quiet, Father. Leave them in peace.
What about my peace? Can't even smoke my meerschaum pipe in my own house. Things are coming to a pretty pass when
You can come into the other room, Father.
I don't want to come into the other room. I want to see what these two are up to. They've got some new kind of fiddle-faddle. Yes, that's what it is, fiddle-faddle. What are you up to this afternoon?
We're experimenting with the electrical machine, Father.
Electrical fiddlesticks? What does it do?
Well, we turn this amber wheel like this. I hold a piece of cat's fur against it, and it produces electrical fire.
What? Electrical fire from cat's fur? Why, you're a clown, that's all you are. What are those little sparks? Lightning, I suppose, eh? Lightning from a cat's fur. Well, that's the funniest thing I ever heard. And the cracklings are thunder, no doubt. Lightning from a cat's fur. Wait till our old tomcat hears about this.
Oh, Father, are you still nagging old poor Peter and Mynheer Cuneus? Now, come with me. It's warmer in the other room, and I've some hot snaps for you.
No. I'd rather stay here and watch these fellas struck by their own lightning. Next, they'll be making thunderbolts. God bless my soul. Did you ever see anything like it? A thunderbolt from cat's fur. Meow, meow,
Peter,
meow.
his joke about thunder and lightning. I have just realized that is what these sparks are, thunder and lightning.
Lightning? You're not serious.
But I am. The spinning amber wheel of our electrical machine produces minute quantities of lightning, which is the sparks. Their sounds are naught but tiny claps of thunder. I know it. The difference is only a matter of magnitude.
But lightning?
We need only to find a way to store our electricity as the clouds do. Yes, Peter, as the clouds do. Then we could... but it is only a dream. For a moment I saw us with the power of the thunderbolt in our hands.
As you say, that's only a dream. Electricity is not a fluid to be stored in vats and tanks and discharged at will. Well, come now to work.
The two scientists continued their groping in the mysteries of electrical fire, for in 1746 that is all their researches were. They knew that they could charge a large variety of substances and that strange phenomena could be brought about in the laboratory, but with all the available knowledge at their fingertips, they were still profoundly ignorant of the forces they played with. When they had exhausted one line of experiment, they turned to another, and then another, till the time came when they decided on a new departure from any they had attempted before.
Now here, my friend, we've set ourselves a pretty problem.
A pretty problem indeed. How do you suppose we can charge water with electricity? And how shall we know if we succeed? Fire and water will not mix. We cannot expect to get sparks from a fluid.
Well, never mind, Cuneus. Let's try and see what happens.
Then this is what I suggest. Let us take a jar of water, cork it tightly at the top, and through the cork insert an iron wire.
Yes, we might try that.
Then we will connect our iron wire to the electrical machine and see what happens. Do you agree? Then let us commence.
The two philosophers had no luck that day, and later they gave up and went to the home of Peter van Muschenbroek to dine. Muschenbroek was the possessor of a second electrical machine, the simple amber wheel which could be rubbed with silk or fur, and this was kept at home. So that evening after dinner...
Well, more snaps, Cuneus?
No, thank you, sir.
If we might be excused, my dear, Cuneus and I thought we might continue our experiments.
What? I'm not going to miss these two droll clowns at work. Not I. I'm going to sit and watch and have some more tales to tell my cronies at the tavern tomorrow. What fools they be!
Very well then, Father, if you stay, you must promise not to make fun of them.
Aye, my dear, I make fun of them. Oh, I wouldn't dream of such a thing.
Very well then. I shall go to my room, but remember, no laughing.
What do you call that thing, Peter?
It's a simple jar of water, Father. We are trying to charge water, so we've coated the jar inside and out with tinfoil.
So now you're trying to get sparks from water, eh? Well, that's the best I've ever heard. Why, I've got an old hound outside in his kennel who knows better than that. Woof, 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 he goes. And he still talks better sense than you two.
Never mind, Father, never mind. Just watch. Now then, Cunius, this time we'll turn the machine longer. If water can be charged, we shall know it tonight.
I wish you fellows would explain that thing.
It is quite simple, sir. The electrical machine is connected by this iron wire here to the water in the jar. I turn the wheel like this, and electrical fire should collect in the jar.
Like a hot coal, I suppose, eh?
When the jar is charged, if water will charge, we test it by holding woolen threads near the iron wire. So, they should be attracted.
Well, are they?
I am afraid not. You see that, Peter?
Yeah.
No sign of attraction, no sign at all.
You've got as much chance of getting your sparks through that iron wire as I have of getting him through my watch chain.
My friend, Peter, my patience is exhausted. I cannot work with this old fool of a father-in-law of yours in this room, mocking us for everything we do. I cannot stand it anymore.
No, Mynheer Cunius, please pay no attention to him.
Why don't you use my watch chain, eh? Well, go on, why don't you? It'll work as well as your iron wire.
That is enough. Here, you old fool. Give me that watch chain.
Here. What are you doing?
Give it to me.
Alone,
That's it. Now, you old goat, we shall use your copper watch chain in place of the iron wire. You shall be a party to our failure now. Peter, my friend, we shall pull out the wire and insert this dear relation's watch chain. Here, hold it while I pull out the wire. It is fitted tightly.
Grasp the jar in one hand and the wire in the other. Then you'll have more purchase.
Yes, that should do it.
Yeah.
Here, we try again.
Cunius! Why, what ails you?
Me up, Peter. I am stricken.
Oh, that'll show you're struck with lightning. That's what you were. Serve you right. Fiddling with things you know naught about.
But what is it? Are you seized with the devil, Cunius? What threw you down?
I don't know. I felt a tingling in my hand and over I went.
Yes, well, that'll learn you, meddling with things that don't concern you. No wonder he was struck by lightning.
Cunius, what did happen? I implore you, describe it exactly.
I held the wire with one hand, my left, and as I grasped the jar with my right hand, I was struck with a violent convulsion. It felt like a thunderbolt.
A thunderbolt? Did you say a thunderbolt? Cunius, do you realize what you're saying?
Only too well. Wait. I take your meaning. The electricity was stored in the jar of water, not merely charged, but stored.
That's it. Cunius, we've discovered how to store electricity. How to store it until it's wanted.
And had I not held the jar in one hand and the wire in the other, we might never have discovered it.
Yes, and but for me, you poor fools, but for me in wanting to change a wire from my watch chain, you'd never have held the jar in one hand and the wire in the other. I have discovered how to store electricity, not you.
Actually, the old man was right. For had Cunius not been annoyed and wanted to use the old chap's watch chain in place of the wire, he never would have carried out the movements he did. By the purest luck, Cunius had discovered the Leyden jar, the first electrical condenser in scientific history. From that discovery stem the condensers that help to make possible our great power systems, our radio sets, the ignition of the modern motor car, and 101 other electrical devices. But the discovery came about through a chance meeting in a storm, the laughter of a skeptical old man, and an accident in a laboratory in the Dutch town of Leyden. The discovery of the Leyden jar, the electrical condenser, was not a matter of intent. It was just a matter of luck.
In just 1 minute, we'll tell you the second fascinating story in tonight's program. But in the meantime, you'll be interested to hear this.
Back to our narrator and cast for the second unusual but true story in our program, A Matter of Luck.
Elias Howe and A Matter of Luck. In the year 1843, the industrial town of Cambridge in Massachusetts was very much like any other industrial town of the eastern seaboard of the United States. It had its dreary factories and its smoky atmosphere, and late every evening it had its crowds of weary workmen making their way home for the night. Employers drove a hard bargain with their men. Hours were long and they were paid a pittance. And the machine repair shop of an engineer named Davis was no different from the rest. But one of his workmen was different. Elias Howe, a young man of 24 with a wife and 2 children, for Lady Luck had marked him down for fame and fortune. Howe was frail and given to dreaming, and the factory master Davis often wondered if he were worth the $9 a week he was paid.
Hey there, Howe. What's the matter with you?
Why, nothing, I guess, Mr. Davis.
Well, get to work then. You think I pay you well just to stand around doing nothing?
I was just thinking...
I don't pay you to think. I pay you to work. Any thinking around here, I'll do, see? You do the work, I'll do the thinking.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Well, get on with it then.
Yes, but... Mr. Davis, that inventor that was in here this morning...
Well, what about him?
I couldn't help overhearing what he said, and I just wondered if maybe he didn't have something there.
That knitting machine? That crazy notion? Listen, if I want anything knitted, I go to my old woman. That's the way it'll always be. Knitting machine, that guy was crazy as a coot.
Well, maybe he was, but there'd be $1 million in it if someone could make the thing work.
Well, there won't be no $9 at the end of this week for you if you don't make yourself work. Now get back that axle around to the forge and make it snappy.
$9 a week was not enough for the Howe family, or for many another, and almost since the day they were married, Mrs. Howe had taken in sewing from the neighborhood tailors. She didn't earn much, but it made just the difference between running into debt and keeping their heads above water. But it meant long hours of tiresome work on top of her other duties, and Mrs. Howe had had enough when Elias came home that night.
You're late again, Elias. Where have you been?
Mr. Davis made me stay late and do extra work. Oh, I'm so tired I could drop.
Oh, what did you have to stay back for? That Davis is nothing but a slave driver, the brute.
Oh, he said I'd been wasting time talking to him about a knitting machine.
A knitting machine? A machine to knit? Oh, no wonder he got extra work out of you if that's the way you go on. Did you ask him for a raise like you promised?
Well, how can I? He'd fire me and get any one of 10 men to take my place in an hour. How do you expect me to ask for a raise?
Well, you'll have to do something, Elias. I can't go on.
Oh, what's the matter now?
I can't keep up with this sewing, Elias. I just can't keep up with it. Scrape, 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 year after year. Oh, I hate the sight of a needle.
Well, I do my best.
Well, your best isn't good enough, that's all. There's never a penny in the house. The children need more to eat, and just look at yourself. I don't know what the world's coming to.
Well, if only I could get one good idea to make some money, we could get away from here and go to New York, maybe.
One good idea, and you think we might escape this wretched poverty. One good idea. Like your knitting machine, I suppose. Oh, Elias, what hope is there for us?
Well, I'll think of something. Something.
And meantime, we all grow old and half-starved. Next, you'll be talking about a sewing machine to relieve me of my work. You're just a dreamer, Elias, and you always will be. I'm married to a dreamer for the rest of my life.
After the meager supper, Elias Howe sat watching his wife sew by lamplight, watching her intent face a few inches away from the needle. He hated to see his wife work so hard, but they had to have every penny they could scrape together, however hard it was come by. Then he remembered his wife's remark about the sewing machine. Well, why not? Why not build a sewing machine and make that fortune he had dreamed about? He began to study stitches, watching intently as his wife's nimble fingers flew back and forth. Then, armed with his first concrete ideas, he began to make small models and experiment with different shapes of needle. After a year's work, he had a crude device to show a neighborhood tailor. It did so, after a fashion, but even he was forced to admit that it had its shortcomings.
Mr. Howe, hey? And what you got there, hey? That machine for sewing I hear about, hey?
That's right, Mr. Minsky. It's taken me a year to build, and I thought you might be interested to see how it works.
Sure, I'm interested, all right. But you don't mean to tell me she sews? Sews like a proper tailor?
Well, not exactly, perhaps, but just you watch. Can I have a piece of material?
Well, there's a bit under your hand. And where does she go, eh, this piece of stuff, eh?
Here, just right in here. That's right. Now, watch while I turn the handle.
So you call that sewing? Here, watch. You see, I give a little pull, so, and the stitches, they all come undone. What is the good of that, Hein?
Well, maybe I've got the tension wrong.
Tension nothing, it is the stitch that is wrong. Young Mr. Howe, let me tell you some things. You think this is the first sewing machine, eh?
Well, yes, isn't it?
No, it's not. There was a sewing machine made 3 years ago by a man named Hunt, and 30 years ago by a Frenchman named Timonier. This Timonier, he was nearly torn to pieces by the seamstresses who thought he would take the bread from their mouths. But they might have saved themselves the trouble. His machine was like yours and Hunt's. It sews a stitch that has no use at all.
But, well, what shall I do to improve it?
You must make a machine to sew a lock stitch, a stitch that will not come undone. But it takes hands to sew a lock stitch. And if you can make a machine to do it, well, I will make shirts for 10 cents a gross. And that's not likely, is it?
A lock stitch, eh? So that's what I want. A lock stitch.
As the tailor had said, Howe's machine had an obvious fault. All it did was to pass a single thread back and forth through the cloth, a stitch that came undone almost immediately. So he set to work on a new machine that would make a tight, firm stitch, this time getting further and further from the solution with each new design. His affairs at home went from bad to worse, and it began to appear as though all his time and trouble had been wasted. But then he received a stroke of luck such as he could never have expected in his wildest hopes or dreams.
What's this, Elias? Only $7.80. Where's the rest of your pay?
Well, dear,
More needles for the sewing machine?
Well, yes.
So, out of a miserable $9, you spend $1.20 on a sewing machine that won't work in 1,000 years. Oh, Elias, how can you?
It will work someday.
Well, that's what you've been saying for more than a year, and I'm sick and tired of it.
Well, the money's spent now, so what's the use of arguing? I only have to think how to make a lock stitch and my fortune's made.
Fortune. Lock stitch. I waste my breath talking to you. Oh, well, come and eat your supper.
What have we tonight?
Suet pudding.
Suet pudding? Oh, you know I hate suet pudding. It gives me indigestion, and I'll have another nightmare, I suppose.
If you earn more money, we might be able to afford better meals. Now eat it up and be thankful.
As Howe had feared, the suet pudding gave him a terrible nightmare, and he dreamed that he was cast ashore on a desert island, an island inhabited by fierce and savage cannibals. He was captured and hauled before their chief.
You are charged with wasting your time and your money trying to make a sewing machine. What have you to say?
I have to find a lock stitch.
Put him in the pot. Put him in the pot. Can you suggest any reason why we should not eat you?
I have to find a lock stitch.
Eat him up. Eat him up. Eat him up. We sentence you to be eaten for trying to find a lock stitch. Eaten with suet pudding.
But I have to find a lock stitch.
Suet pudding. Suet pudding. Suet pudding. You will be sewn in a lock stitch and eaten. Sewn in a lock stitch. Sew him in a lock stitch. Sew him in a lock stitch.
A lock stitch? How do you sew a lock stitch?
With a needle in the point of our spears, we'll sew you in a lock stitch. With a loop and a shuttle, we will sew you in a lock stitch. Loop and shuttle. Loop and shuttle.
Elias, wake up. Wake up, can't you?
What's the matter? Oh, what a dream. I dreamed I was being eaten by cannibals.
Eaten by cannibals? Oh, whatever next.
And that's not all. They were going to sew me up in a lock stitch made with a loop and a loop and a shuttle. Yes! A loop and a shuttle.
Have you gone mad?
No. That's the way they did it in the dream. They had spears threaded at their points. They made loops with their spears and then thrust a shuttle through the loop carrying a second thread. That's how I'll do it. 2 threads and a shuttle. The lock stitch.
As most people know today, that is the principle of the sewing machine. It has not changed since the night of Elias Howe's dream. A few years later, Howe's machine was built and patented. And although Isaac Singer attempted to defeat him in the courts, he eventually had to pay royalties to Howe for every lock-stitch sewing machine he built. Howe died a millionaire, for Singer soon had sewing machines in half the clothing factories and homes in America. Howe never forgot the amazing luck of the dream that showed him the way to make his machine sew. A suet pudding and a fantastic nightmare contributed to Howe's success. For although the discovery of the sewing machine was a matter of intent, discovery of the stitch that would make it sew was just a matter of luck.
The two authentic stories of the discovery of the electric condenser and the sewing machine were dramatized by Lindsay Hardy from factual research material and were directed by Donovan Joyce. The performers included John Alden, Kevin Brennan, Rita Pauncefort, Harvey Adams, Frank Bradley, Dinah Shearing, Lou Vernon, John Bushell, Lee O'Malley, and David Lowe. Your narrator was Ward Leopold, who invites you to listen again 1 week from now, same night, time, and station, for a further fascinating half hour of A Matter of Luck, a Donovan Joyce production.
A Matter of Luck. A program dedicated to the greatest inventor and scientific discoverer the world has known, Lady Luck, and bringing you in one complete 30-minute presentation 2 authentic and true stories of remarkable scientific achievement. Tonight we tell you of Otto Lilienthal and René Lenach, and how each became famous through A Matter of Luck. Otto Lilienthal and A Matter of Luck. Since the dawn of history, no dream has occupied men's imagination more than the possibility of flight. From ancient Greek mythology comes the legend of Icarus, whose waxen wings were melted when he flew too near the sun. Thousands of years later, Leonardo da Vinci actually drew plans of a flying machine which, needless to say, could not possibly have left the ground. For lacking all knowledge of physical science, it was natural that men should pattern their ideas of flight on that of birds. And it was not until recent times that Otto Lilienthal, through A Matter of Luck, showed that this was wrong. Lilienthal and his brother Gustav were Germans, born in the town of Anklam in Pomerania. And this in itself was a stroke of luck, for nearby was the Carlsberg Moor, a bird's paradise, abounding with buzzards, kestrels, and storks. The Lilienthals' father died when they were very young, but their mother, a sterling woman, managed to give them a technical education at Potsdam, out of the money she earned giving music lessons. In 1865, they came home on holidays, and as they'd done since they were children, they made a beeline for the moor.
What about here, Gustav?
On top of the sandhill?
Yes. If we lie in the grass and don't move, soon they'll be flying quite close.
I wish I had a telescope. Do you think that maybe Mother might buy it?
Oh, don't be silly. Mother's done more than enough for us already. And I certainly wouldn't ask her for a penny to buy us a telescope.
No, I suppose you're right. Not for bird watching, anyway. Hey, did you see that?
The stork that just landed?
Yes. He seemed to put his legs out and then come round facing the wind, with his wings spread out wide.
Yes, I saw that.
Otto?
What?
Do you think that men will ever learn to fly?
Oh, I'm sure of it. Well, what do you think we spend all our time like this for? If we don't hit on the secret of how birds fly, someone else will.
And it's only by watching birds that we'll ever learn their secret. Now, shut up your chatter and watch the birds.
Oh. Listen, Otto, I'm getting cold. Stiff and cold. What do you say we head for home? We've been here 4 hours.
Oh, all right. I suppose it'll be supper time when we get back.
Hey, look over there.
Where? Oh, yes, I see. Looks like a stork flapping about on the ground. Maybe it's caught in a trap or something. Come on, let's go and see.
Oh, I've seen enough of storks for today. Let's go home, for heaven's sake, before we get into trouble for being late.
Not on your life. If we can capture that stork alive...
If we can capture it alive, what?
Well, it's just a little idea of mine. Oh, come on now. And if you're as cold as you make out, let's run.
It was lucky for Otto Lilienthal that he captured his stork, for it put him on the track of his great discovery, despite what his mother had to say when the brothers arrived home with the struggling bird.
Otto, Gustav, what in the world have you brought home now?
It's a stork, Mother. We found it with a broken wing out in the Carlsberg Moor.
Oh, dear me. Well, where are you going to put it? Oh, really, Otto, what on earth do you want a stork for? Kill it and put the poor thing out of its misery.
Oh, it's not badly hurt. I'm going to patch up its wing and then put it to work.
Put it to work? Oh, how can you be so absurd, Otto? I don't know what your father would say if he were alive.
Now, Mother, you just wait and see. With this stork well again and tied to the ground with a long piece of cord, I'll really be able to study how she flies. See?
Oh, you two and your flying. It's against the laws of God and man. Now get inside and clean up for supper. It's going cold. Fancy, a stork in the house at my age.
Otto soon repaired the stork's damaged wing, and while the holidays lasted, he and Gustav spent their time encouraging the bird to fly, then coaxing it down again with a string attached to its legs, and studying the action of its wings with scrupulous observation. Then they decided to go one step further.
Now look, Gustav. All these weeks we've been making a hop about in the yard. Why don't we take her out on the moor and watch her in the wind?
Oh, what for? We've seen everything she can do. Our next step is to build some wings, strap them on, and imitate her.
Not till I've seen what she does to get going in the wind.
No, it's obvious, isn't it? They face away from the wind to take the air, flap like mad until they gain height, then face about into the wind to pull up and land.
Yes, but... Oh, come on, Gustav. Out onto the moor where we can see for ourselves.
Well, here we are. This ought to do. Ooh, certainly windy enough.
Just what I want. Now, wait a minute, Auntie Stork, while I hammer your peg in. There. Now, up you go. Go on, fly. Well, fly, can't you?
What this bird needs is some German army discipline.
She's never been as stubborn as this before. Shush! Fly! Well, I've got you facing away from the wind. What more do you want?
If she wants to be difficult, let her try flying into the wind.
All right, I will. There now, how do you like that? But, well, what on earth do you make of that? She went straight up without hardly a flap.
And straight into the wind. But she didn't seem to fly forward at all. Just straight up in the air.
Gustav, this gives me a great idea, a great idea. I'm going home to work it out this minute. If I'm right.
Otto, I do wish you'd get your elbows off the table and eat your supper.
Oh, sorry, Mother. I'm thinking.
Surely not about that silly stork again.
Yes. Today, Gustav and I saw something we must have seen 100 times before without taking any notice, didn't we?
The stork always faces the wind to take the air, Mother.
That's the stork's business. If you were a stork, you'd probably do exactly the same. Now eat your schnitzel.
Do you know what I think? I think that the flapping of a bird's wing is not the true explanation of its flight. In essence, a bird glides and only flaps its wings to make the air flow faster over its wing surface. The secret of flying as in gliders. Yes, I'm sure of it. Gliders.
For the next 20 or more years, Otto Lilienthal experimented with first one form of glider and then another. But he could not devote all his time to flying. There was a living to be earned. And it was not until 1891 that he was in a position to take up his researches in earnest. By this time, he had written a remarkable book on the action of birds in flight. But he did not make the same mistake that so many men had made before him. Where they had tried to fly by the flapping of wings, and in many cases, with superb disregard for the laws of gravity, jumped to their deaths, Lilienthal pinned his faith in gliding, never forgetting what he had learned from the stork on Carlsberg Moor. His brother Gustav was no longer interested in learning the secret of flight, so Otto enlisted the aid of a friend named Ulitz. Between them, they acquired a hilltop near the town of Reinov and built on it a workshop and storeroom. It was in the summer of 1891 that Lady Luck smiled on Otto, soon after he'd made his largest glider of all.
Well, Ulitz, my friend, there it is. Soon we shall know who is wrong, you or I.
I can't help thinking, Otto, this time you've bitten off more than you can chew.
You mean because my glider has 2 wings? Is that it?
Well, yes. You've never seen a bird with an upper and lower wing now, have you?
No, but that's quite beside the point. How many times must I impress on you only the theory of bird flight is of any use to us? The practice is quite useless. That is why I refuse to entertain the idea of flapping wings, and stick to my straight-wing gliders instead.
If you don't mind my saying so, they aren't up to much now, are they?
No, they're not. There is something lacking. But what it is, I simply don't know. But you'll admit I have made some glides now, haven't I?
A few score meters, yes. But you've never yet contrived to rise, only to glide downhill.
I never seem to get enough lift from my wing areas. And that's why I've doubled it by building the biplane. Oh, well, out we go and see how I fare. This time I really should fly.
But like all the rest, his new glider was practically useless, even though he had made the new departure of building it with double wings. To understand exactly what next took place, one must picture Lilienthal's contrivance. It was simply 2 wings made of willow saplings and tied together with cord. The wing surfaces themselves were of fabric, and it was Lilienthal's practice to run into the wind with the wings held above his head. But after his abortive efforts to glide with his new biplane, he was prepared to give up in disgust, and one night left the glider outside instead of storing it in the hilltop shed. That same night, it rained, and the next morning, at the shed on the hilltop, Lady Luck smiled.
Ulitz, my friend, this is the last straw. I've finished with these fantastic efforts to fly for good and all.
What? After 26 years? I don't believe it.
Well, I'm not going to build another glider, I can tell you that. Look at the confounded thing. The rain has wet the cords, they've all shrunk. My beautiful flat wing surface has a curve in it.
Pity. Such a beauty, too.
Well, it's ruined, so that's that. I may as well get it inside before it blows away.
Just a moment. The way you're holding the glider now, Otto, it has a curve just like the curve of a bird's wing at the shoulder.
So it has. Funny, I didn't notice that. Just for the sake of interest, I wonder if I could glide with the wings curved like this.
Why not try?
I'm going to. Help me up onto the roof, will you?
Right.
Up you go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Off! I'm flying! I'm flying! See, Ulitz! I can fly! I can fly!
Bless my soul, he's actually rising. The man's in flight. He's flying.
By an incredible stroke of fortune, Otto Lilienthal had discovered the aerofoil, the wing shape that makes it possible for every aeroplane to fly. From mighty 100-ton bombers to the tiger moths that putter around the airfields on Saturday afternoons. The rain had shrunk the cords that held his glider's framework together, warping the upper surface into a rough curve. It was by no means a perfect wing section, but it enabled Lilienthal to make more than 2,000 flights, some as high as 400 feet and of many minutes' duration. Then, in 1896, his luck deserted him, and he crashed to fracture his spine and die. The science of flight has made many mighty strides since Otto Lilienthal's day, but it was he who showed how a wing could be made to lift and not cut uselessly through the air. But his discovery of the aerofoil, his pioneering of modern flight, was not a matter of intent. It was purely a matter of luck.
In just 1 minute, we shall tell you our second fascinating story, that of René Laennec. At the moment, we pause for a brief announcement.
Back now to our narrator and cast for the second true story in our presentation, A Matter of Luck.
René Laennec and A Matter of Luck. René Laennec was a sickly child, born in Brittany in the year 1781 of a consumptive mother. But what he lacked in physical strength he made up for in brains, so that by the time he was 17, his medical career had begun, and he was assistant to his uncle, a physician of the city of Nantes. But the good doctor of Nantes saw that his nephew was destined for greater things than were offering in the provinces. So on a certain day in 1800, he came to a decision.
Well now, Rennie, my boy, have you seen enough of ailing peasants and gouty townsfolk for today?
Me? I never tire of them, sir. I would like to work 20 hours a day if I could.
I know, and I've been watching. Rennie, if ever a man was born to be a physician, that man is you. And, well?
What, Uncle?
How would you like to go to Paris?
To Paris? For a holiday?
No, my boy, not for a holiday. To live there and study medicine.
To live in Paris and study medicine? But, Uncle, you don't mean it. Where would the money come from?
Oh, you leave that to me. Have you ever heard of Corvisart?
Dr. Corvisart of the College of Medicine? Why, yes, of course. There's not a doctor in France who hasn't.
All right. Don't get excited. I studied with Corvisart, and although he has become a great physician while I am but a country practitioner, we are still friends. All arrangements have been made. You are to go to Paris next month and study under him, and I know that neither he nor I will be disappointed in you.
My dear uncle, if I live to be 1,000, I'll never be able to thank you enough. Never. To study with Corvisart. I don't know what to say.
Well, don't say anything, my boy. Just take a word of advice instead. Do not let your enthusiasm wear you out. I want you to look after your own health as much as the health of your patients. Remember?
Yes, Uncle. I remember.
And so René Lenac became a physician at the Paris College of Medicine, specializing in ailments of the heart and chest. By 1816, he was already a man of note, whose opinions were looked up to by all of his profession. But none realized the shortcomings and limitations of 19th century medicine better than he. Of our modern aids to diagnosis, he had none. And many a patient went untreated and uncured, simply because the doctors could not decide what was wrong. This was particularly true of chest complaints. And it was after a disheartening day at the Necker Hospital that Lenac went to his old mentor, Corvisart, to discuss a revolutionary theory that had occurred to him.
I am becoming more and more convinced every day, sir, if medical science is to advance a step from its present state, we must improve on our methods of diagnosis.
On my soul, my dear Lenac, I have no quarrel with you there.
Take a patient I had today. He was 65 years old and complained of pains in the chest. Now I ask you, how many diseases are covered by that one symptom? He had pains in the chest. And what else could he tell me? Could I examine his lungs? Could I see with my eyes the state of his heart? Could I watch the valves open and shut as his blood flowed through them? No.
It's a state of affairs we always have to contend with, my dear fellow. It's my belief that we always will have to. So there's no use upsetting yourself.
That old man will die. When he is dead, I can cut him open and say, "Ah, Dr. Lenac, this patient of yours suffered from this or from that or from the other disease, but he will have to die first." What sort of medicine do you call that?
Me? I shrug. We do our best. We study, we watch, we learn. We are not sorcerers to see inside a man's body, are we now? We cannot see through skin and bone.
But we can do something else.
Eh? What? What do you mean? Look here, Lenac, you're leading up to something. What is it?
Simply this. I believe that in many diseases the whole story, the whole condition of the patient could be learnt from the heart.
If you could see it, yes.
No, if you could hear the beat clearly. Now, with children or thin people, I've already heard the peculiar murmur of a diseased heart, but with most patients, through the tissue, I cannot hear enough. Dr. Corvisart, we must find an instrument to enable us to listen to the human heart.
That was Dr. Lenac's problem. But 3 years went by before he found his solution, and then it was purely by luck. He had been called to the bedside of a patient who had suffered a heart attack, a woman, and as luck would have it, one of the fattest women he had ever seen. He made his customary examination, but when he wished to go further...
What you suggest is an outrage, monsieur. An outrage. My good man, I am a doctor, a physician, and I am concerned only with curing madame.
I don't care. I don't see what you want to do that for.
Then, although your wife may be dying, I shall take the time to explain. The heart, my good man, is a pump with valves like any other pump. Your wife has a diseased heart, but to say exactly what is wrong, I must hear it work. I must hear the beating of your wife's heart. How can I hear her heart with anything but my ears? Now get out of my way, unless you would rather call another doctor.
Sacre coeur, I only
Be quiet. I'm listening.
What do you hear?
Quiet. The same old story. It's useless.
What is useless, monsieur?
I can hear nothing.
But you had your ear on the chest of madame.
And between my ear and madame's heart there is what? Observe, monsieur. Your wife, would you call her slim? Eh? Between my ear and her heart are layers of skin, of fat, of flesh, of muscle, bone, and lung tissue. I cannot tell what ails your wife's heart, so I cannot say what her treatment should be. In such a case as this, it is hopeless. If only I had some kind of an instrument.
Lady Luck showed Lenac his instrument as he stepped into his carriage to drive back to Necker Hospital. He was in a bad temper. He hated to admit failure, particularly in his own province of the heart and the chest.
Coachman, whip up your horses. I haven't all day to waste here.
Well, certainly, monsieur. To the hospital.
Of course, to the hospital. And if it's not too much to ask, pray, what do you find so amusing? Have my clothes on back to front? Eh?
Oh, indeed no, monsieur, indeed no. It is not you I laugh at.
Then who is it?
The children, monsieur. The children in the street there. Did you not see them playing? And such a game. To be a child once more.
Must have been a curious game. What was it?
Oh, a game they made up themselves. Consider, monsieur. They had a plank of wood, perhaps 3, perhaps 4 meters long. At one end, some nails. At the other, the children stood listening. Their ears clapped firmly to the wood. Such a game. Those little ones.
What actually did they do?
While one child plucked at the nails, the others listened at the plank's other end. What one child did, all the others could hear.
So, the child plucked nails at one end, and it was audible at the other. So... Coachman, stop! Turn about quickly, man, turn about! Drive me back to those children at once, I say at once!
Remembering a simple principle of physics taught to him by Corvisart, René Lenach had seen from the children's game how he might make his instrument and listen to the human heart, and to test it he took the old doctor with him, back to the house of the stout woman with heart trouble.
Monsieur, this is Dr. Corvisart from the College of Medicine. We wish to examine your wife once more.
But you said you could do no more, Doctor.
That was 4 hours ago, and since then I have made what I believe is a great discovery. You see this paper tube, my friend? This tube of tightly rolled paper? Come, I'll show you. Observe, Dr. Corvisart. I place this tube firmly over the patient's heart, with one end pressed to the skin. At the other I place my ear, so.
But for the life of me, Lenach, I cannot see...
If you please, sir. It works! I can hear perfectly. It works!
In the name of heaven, let me try. Quickly.
Here, press firmly and place the other end well within the ear. Yes, that's right. Can you hear it?
Yes. Yes, I hear it. Every muscular movement of the heart. Lenach, it is amazing, amazing, and so simple. My dear fellow, I congratulate you. Injuries that have been inaudible for centuries have now found a voice.
Oh, don't congratulate me, sir. It was none of my doing.
What? Nonsense. If not you, then who have we to thank?
Some children who were playing with a wooden plank when I happened to pass by. They are the ones who discovered my instrument.
René Lenach had discovered the stethoscope, and although his tightly rolled tube of paper was the instrument in its crudest form, and very soon to be improved upon, mediate auscultation, the great aid to physical diagnosis, had come into being. In the few remaining years of his life, this frail little Frenchman made other discoveries, and found time to compile a valuable treatise on the heart and its action. He was also the first to describe the minute bodies that cause consumption, and by the irony of fate, this was the disease that took his life in 1826. But he is not forgotten. In the pocket or round the neck of almost every doctor in the world you will find the stethoscope, the invaluable instrument discovered by René Lenach, not by experiment or intent, but by just a matter of luck. The two authentic stories of the discovery of flight and of the stethoscope were dramatized by Lindsay Hardy from factual research material and were directed by Donovan Joyce. The performers included David Lowe, Leonard Teal, Ron Faulkner, Dorothy Dunkley, Max Osbiston, Norman Blackler, Frank Bradley, John Casabon, Alfred Bristow, and Richard Ashley. Your narrator was Ward Leopold, who invites you to listen once again 1 week from now. Same time, night and station, for a further fascinating half hour of A Matter of Luck, a Donovan Joyce production. A Matter of Luck. A program dedicated to the greatest inventor and scientific discoverer the world has known, Lady Luck, and bringing you in one complete 30-minute presentation 2 authentic and true stories of remarkable scientific achievement. Tonight we tell you of Henri Becquerel and Edward Goodrich Aitchison, and how each became famous through A Matter of Luck. Henri Becquerel and A Matter of Luck. The discovery of X-rays by Conrad Röntgen in 1895 set the scientists and philosophers of the world agog. Here was something for the mind to ponder on, a mysterious and unexplained radiation whose nature none of them fully understood. And many and varied were the theories advanced to account for the strange phenomenon. 2 men in particular were absorbed in the problem: Poincaré, the great French mathematician, and Henri Becquerel, third in line of a noted family of physicists. In 1896, these 2 learned men put their heads together to explore a new line of research opened up by Poincaré. And one evening, Becquerel called at his house to discuss it.
Pull up to the fire, my dear Becquerel. You may as well talk in comfort, eh?
By all means. The man who said that intellect thrived on discomfort didn't know what he was talking about.
Quite. Pass the poker over, would you? Suzette! Suzette, bring more coal, if you please. There. Now then. I've been studying the findings of our German friend Röntgen and emanations of the cathode tube. X-rays, as he chose to call them. And I'm going to suggest attacking the problem of their nature from a new angle.
Precisely how?
So far, the rays have been studied from their source. I propose to look into their effects. Here's Suzette with our coal. Straight onto the fire with it, Suzette.
Yes, monsieur.
That's all, thank you. You may go. Oh, a hot glass of something good for both of us in an hour, Suzette.
In 1 hour, monsieur.
I didn't quite follow your last remark. The effects of X-rays, was it?
Yes. I propose to study their effect rather than their source.
I'm afraid I still don't see the trend of your idea.
Phosphorescence. I have a theory that X-rays may lie at the bottom of phosphorescence. And if we study it closely, we may arrive at some clue that will help us to understand the cathode tube.
Ah, very good, very good. My friend, I am just the man to help you. As you know, my father made a very careful study of phosphorescence. But, of course, X-rays were after his time.
You like this notion of mine?
Very much indeed. I shall resume the subject where my father left off. Yes, he'd like that.
How far did he get with it?
He found he'd exhausted the subject when he investigated the phosphorescent salts of uranium and thorium, from pitchblende, you know.
Yes, yes.
Now, starting quite blind, as we might say, let us follow in Rontgen's footsteps. I believe his first inkling of X-rays was something to do with photographic plates, was it not?
Yes, a key photographed itself when his cathode tube lay nearby.
Correct. Now, what I propose is this. Phosphorescence is stimulated by light. I shall expose a salt of uranium to bright light while resting on a totally enclosed plate. If there is any connection between phosphorescence and X-rays, then there should be a photographic exposure.
When do you propose to start?
When? Why not tonight? Why not at once? Now, let us discuss details of apparatus and procedure.
As Henri Becquerel discovered in the weeks of experiment that followed, there was no connection whatever between phosphorescence and X-rays, and Poincaré's theory was wrong. But it was the lucky chance that gave Becquerel a remarkable discovery. At first he was at a loss to understand the evidence of his own eyes, but when its significance dawned upon him, he hurried at once to tell his friend the astounding news.
Poincaré! Poincaré!
What is it, Henri? Calm yourself. Has there been an accident?
No. Yes, there has been.
Well, come and sit down and tell me all.
I don't want to sit down. Poincaré, you know that I have been studying uranium.
Yes.
Looking for X-rays from it.
Yes. What is it?
And you know that we were both quite wrong in our phosphorescence theory. But I have found that uranium gives off some kind of rays spontaneously, all the time.
No, you can't make me believe that.
It is true, and I can prove it. Wrap up a piece of uranium with a photographic plate, as I did, in 10 square meters of paper to exclude the light if you want to. Leave it for a while, and soon you will find your plate exposed. Try it.
Is this true, Becquerel? You're not... No.
I couldn't believe my eyes at first. I said to myself, Henri...
Uranium must give off light.
No. These rays are not light. In a pitch-black room, you could not even see the uranium I use.
Is it heat, then?
Heat? When the stuff is cold to the touch? No, Poincaré. By accident, by luck, I have discovered a new kind of ray, something mysterious without even a name. It's not light. It's not heat. It's just there.
Becquerel's discovery fascinated scientists all over the world, and in particular 2 famous people, Marie and Pierre Curie. This brilliant couple worked in Paris at the School of Physics in the Rue de la Glacière, and they seized on the new development and studied it closely. Using delicate instruments, they measured Becquerel's mysterious rays and discovered much about their nature. Then, by extraordinary mathematical deduction, Marie Curie proved that the salts of uranium and thorium alone were not responsible for the rays, but that a third and hitherto unknown element was mixed with them. This they called radium, and its emanations they named radioactivity, and at once set to work to isolate the new element. Henri Becquerel followed the course of their research with great interest. As all the world knows, in 1901 the Curies succeeded in isolating radium, and one day, soon after their sensational success, Becquerel called at their laboratory to make a request.
Marie, come here. We have a distinguished visitor.
Who is it?
Professor Becquerel from the Museum of Natural History.
Oh, Professor Becquerel. We are honored, monsieur.
Not at all, madame. It is you who do me the honor. How does your work go?
Now that we've isolated our pure radium, the worst of the task is over. But we still have a long way to go. A long, hard way.
That is what I keep dinning into the heads of my students. No matter how far one pushes ahead in science, there is still a long way to go. But to come to the point of my visit, I have a request to make.
I think I can guess what it is, Professor. You wish to borrow some radium. Am I right?
Is it asking too much?
What do you say, Marie? Can we spare a milligram or two?
For anyone else, I should say no. But for you, Professor, of course.
Madame Curie, 1,000 thanks. I know the magnitude of my request with radium so scarce and of such value, but...
Please say no more, Professor. It is a pleasure. We have not forgotten who discovered radioactivity in the first place. Have we, Pierre?
Most certainly not.
Give me no credit for that, I pray you. It was nothing but a lucky accident when I was following up a silly theory.
I think you are too modest, monsieur. At all events, you shall get your radium. I shall prepare you a small tube of radium bromide this minute.
And so Henri Becquerel went away with the small glass tube of radium tucked in his waistcoat pocket, little thinking that he was about to make his second and even more remarkable discovery, again through luck. As he had said to the Curies, radium was so rare as to be almost priceless, and in order to run no risk of losing his microscopic speck, he kept the tube in his pocket when it was not lying on his laboratory bench. Then, after several weeks, he noticed a strange and disturbing occurrence, something he had to show the Curies.
Monsieur Curie, this is a rather delicate matter. Perhaps, madame, if you wouldn't mind, it's rather a delicate matter.
You have me thoroughly mystified, Professor. But if you wish me to withdraw...
Yes, please, if you would be so kind.
Very well. But I insist on hearing all about it later.
Now, monsieur, what is all this mystery? What are you doing now?
I am stripping to the waist.
But what's the matter? Do you want to fight a duel or something?
Have patience, my dear fellow. There. Now then, I am healthy and in good condition, you agree?
Yes, but I won't vouch for your mind at the moment.
Observe. Here, just above my waistline. What do you see?
I see what looks like a particularly nasty burn or an ulcer. How did you do it?
That is what I want you to tell me. I noticed it first about 10 days ago, since when it has become steadily worse.
Then why don't you see your physician? I am not a physician.
I have already done so. He simply throws up his hands. No unguent, no salve has any effect on it. I began to think I'd contracted some wretched disease to produce such an ulceration, until this morning, when I suddenly realized what might be the cause.
I implore you, Professor, come to the point. What are you driving at?
Simply this. The ulcer is directly beneath the pocket where I've been carrying the little glass tube of radium. Always it has been in the same pocket of my waistcoat. Now I ask you, is it not more than a coincidence?
The radium rays. Yes. Oh, God bless my soul. What have you found this time? Marie! Marie, come quickly.
But my shirt, monsieur. Wait till I don my shirt.
This is no time for modesty. Marie!
What's the matter, Pierre? Oh. Why is Professor Becquerel half naked?
Because you must see for yourself what radium rays do to human tissue. There. Look on his body. See? The ulcer.
So. Oh, Pierre, you are sure of this?
Almost. He has been carrying the radium about in the same pocket.
We must be certain of this. It's of vital importance. Pierre, we will both strap a particle of radium to our arms and make certain once and for all. If we both develop an ulcer on our arms beneath the radium, oh, pray to God we do.
Pierre and Marie Curie soon had radium burns on their arms, similar to that of Professor Becquerel, and there was no longer any room for doubt. The radioactivity of radium destroyed human tissues, and the significance of it did not escape them.
My friends, who can say what benefits this discovery may bestow on mankind? If radium eats away healthy tissue, it must also eat away diseased flesh. It is too soon to say, of course, But we may be on the road to conquering humanity's most loathsome curse.
Do you mean cancer, Professor?
I mean cancer, madam. I mean that radium may be used to destroy the malignant tumors of cancer. And though I may be laughed at for saying it, I see the hand of Providence in my two accidental discoveries. Yes, Providence.
Henri Becquerel and the Curies, and their original work on radioactivity, have passed into the history of science and medicine. But the part played by Lady Luck will never be forgotten. The false assumption of Poincaré, the mathematician, a professor of physics who carried radium about in his pocket. These were the unconnected whims of fortune that resulted in great discoveries. The finding of radioactivity and its effects were not a matter of intent. They were just a matter of luck.
In just 1 minute, we will tell you our second fascinating story, that of Edward Aitchison. We pause now for a brief word from our announcer. Back now to our narrator and cast for our second stranger-than-fiction story.
Edward Aitchison and a Matter of Luck. Romantic is the story of Edward Goodrich Aitchison, who was born of poor parents in Washington, Pennsylvania in 1856. He was forced to earn his living in the coal mines at an early age. But with exceptional energy, he devoted his leisure to experiment and study in electricity and mechanics, with such success that by the time he was 23, he was offered employment as assistant to none other than Thomas Alva Edison. In 1881, Edison secured a contract to install electric lights in Italy, Belgium, and Holland. And since he was going to Europe, he decided to furnish an exhibit of some of his scientific discoveries at the Paris International Exhibition being held that year. So he went to Paris with a staff of technicians and took Aitchison as his chief assistant. There they attended a great reception, a function whose splendor dazzled the young scientist, and where he met the person who gave him what he thought was a great idea.
My dear Dr. King, this is a surprise. Why, I haven't seen you for, it must be nearly 5 years.
Must be all of that, Edison. I guess you're over here for the exhibition.
And some rather big business.
Well, I'm delighted to hear it. Oh, Countess, I beg your pardon. And may I present Mr. Thomas Edison, the famous inventor, Countess Antoinette de Houbigard.
Well, how do you do, ma'am?
Paris is lucky this season, monsieur, with so many famous men here. You have a showing at the exhibition?
Yes, but I'm afraid it's very dull and scientific. The only people who come to look at it are graybeards from Europe's universities. I should say Dr. King's interests would be more to your taste, Countess.
Dr. King and his diamonds? Oh, but yes. I hear he is making New York the jewelry center of the world.
Tiffany's Fifth Avenue have the jewels, Countess, but it takes the women of Paris to wear them.
You are, what you say, flatterer, no? But I like it. Who is the handsome young man coming towards us?
Oh, the tall fellow? Well, that's my second in command here, a very clever young scientist named Aitchison. Would you like to meet him, Countess?
But yes.
Oh, Edward, come over here a minute. Here are some people I want you to meet. Countess Antoinette de Houbegon, Mr. Edward Aitchison, and Dr. King.
How do you do, Countess? Dr. King, sir? How do you do?
And I always thought that men of science had long gray hair and eyebrows sticking out. So.
Oh, look here, King. There are one or two things I'd rather like to talk to you about. Do you think we might excuse ourselves?
Oh, I think so. Antoinette?
Yes, off you go. I know you only want to smoke your horrid cigars, and this young man will look after me. Eh, Mr. Aitchison?
Well, yes. That is, certainly, ma'am.
Very well, then. Come along, Edison. We'll see you two later in the evening.
Now, tell me, Monsieur Aitchison, why are you not dancing?
Well, I've never had time to learn. You see, this is the first time I've ever been anywhere like this. Are you really a countess?
Of course, silly boy. Why not?
It was just that, well, we were as poor as church mice when I was growing up. I lived on the wrong side of the tracks, as we say in America. I spent all my time studying and working. I never had a cent for anything but books.
But now you are a clever scientist. You will soon be rich, no?
Well, I'm afraid not. I guess I'll never have much money. But I have dreamed of a life like this, often.
Then why should you not have it, eh? Tell me that.
Well, scientists like Mr. Edison seem to make a lot of money, but I'm not so much an inventor as an investigator. My long suit is research.
But why should you not find something worth a lot of money from this research? What is the phrase? Search and you will find. What about the men who find, well, diamonds? Do they not look and look here and there until they find them?
Oh, yeah, but Madonna, Countess, I'm not a prospector looking for diamonds.
I know a man who looks for them, and not in Africa or Brazil either, in his laboratory. He says he will be the richest man in the world someday with his artificial diamonds.
Men have been trying to do that for centuries. Cranks, the lot of them.
My friend is not a crank. He says that it's theoretically possible to make diamonds in the laboratory. All that's lacking is the method. Why should you not discover that method?
Me? Make diamonds? Well, why not? Why not?
It was a fantastic idea, but that was a fantastic era. The next day, Edward Aitchison called on Dr. King at his hotel in the Faubourg Saint-Germain.
Well, what can I do for you, Mr. Aitchison?
Well, sir, I want some information about diamonds.
Diamonds, eh?
I'm told that you know more about them than most, so... Well, I believe in consulting an expert in all matters of inquiry.
Good for you. That way you'll never get wrong information. Now, just what did you want to know?
Well, I know the diamond is a crystalline form of carbon, but how is it actually made? In nature, I mean.
Diamonds, my boy, were formed millions, billions of years ago, when the world was a molten mass under the stresses and strains of tremendous heat and pressure.
Heat and pressure, eh? The arc furnace.
Listen. You haven't been bitten by the artificial diamond bug, have you?
There might be something in it. And if there was, I'd be richer than Croesus.
Nothing doing. For a scientist, that's very loose thinking. Let me tell you something, Aitchison. Diamonds are precious and have great value simply because they're scarce. And even so, the world's diamond merchants stick together and keep the price up. I know.
But...
just a minute. Let me finish. Suppose you discover how to make them in the laboratory. What happens? Your process leaks out. Everybody makes them. Then they're not scarce anymore. Down comes the price. And what are you making then? Beads. Strings of beads that Pete will be able to buy for $1.50.
I never thought of that. Well, there goes a dream. Still, it was nice while it lasted.
But as time went on, Aitchison became more and more sure that there was a fortune in artificial diamonds, despite what Dr. King had said. And in the succeeding 10 years, he worked intermittently on the problem. He pinned his faith for the required heat on the arc furnace he understood so well, and whose temperatures were higher than any others found on Earth. But by 1891, he was almost prepared to abandon his quest, when Lady Luck threw a remarkable discovery in his path. He was working in a Monongahela City powerhouse, owned by Edison, and where an arc furnace was installed. On this day, Aitchison was using a carbon electrode of powdered coke and experimenting with various clays. Maybe this time, he said to himself, I will make an artificial diamond.
Hello, Edward. Still looking for your artificial diamonds?
Uh-huh. Not for much longer.
Well, what have you got in the crucible?
An unusual clay from a pottery works just outside town. Carborundum, it's called.
Well, look here. When you're through, I want you to read this. It's a report on a new chrome tungsten steel. So hard that it can't be worked. Can't grind it, can't cut it, can't machine it.
Not even with emery?
Emery won't look at it. That's how hard it is.
That's rather interesting. Would you move your head a bit? I want to see the clock.
Oh, sure.
35 minutes. That ought to be enough. Now, let's switch off and have a look. As usual, nothing. Nothing at all.
Uh-huh. And what do you call this?
Where?
Here, stuck to the carbon. Little gray crystals.
Oh, those. Oh, I've had those dozens of times. I don't know what they are, but they're certainly not diamonds.
They look as if they'd be pretty hard. Are they?
I never tested them to see. I just check them out.
Well, let's step over to the window and see how they behave on glass. Now then. Well, I'll be doggone. Why, look at that. These crystals will scratch glass, see?
Say, I wonder if it'll scratch diamond.
We'll soon see. Well, look, take my ring and try.
Oh, you don't mind if I ruin it?
If that crystal scratches my diamond, you'll be able to afford 20 new ones. Try it.
It does. It's as hard as diamond. Say, Mr. Edison, is this what you're looking for grinding and cutting that chrome steel?
Is it? And all this time, you've had it right under your nose, the abrasive that industry has been praying for, and you've been chucking it out. Now you'll have to give it a name. What are you going to call the stuff?
Well, it's probably a compound of corundum and carbon, so, what about, carborundum? Yeah, that's it. Carborundum.
By pure luck, Edward Goodrich Aitchison had discovered the world's finest abrasive, a substance that has never been improved upon. Later, he learned that it was silicon carbide, the second hardest substance known to man, and its discovery opened the way to tremendous advances in metallurgy and industry. For without carborundum, modern industry would be paralyzed. Aitchison founded a great company and became a rich man, and all by accident. He was not looking for an abrasive that day in the powerhouse. He was trying to make diamonds. So that the invention of carborundum was not a matter of intent. It was merely a matter of luck.
The stories of the discovery of the surgical use of radium and of carborundum were dramatized by Lindsay Hardy from factual research material and were directed by Donovan Joyce. The performers included David Lowe, Alfred Bristow, Kevin Brennan, John Bushell, Dinah Shearing, Alan Trevor, Leonard Teal, Reg Collins, and Margaret Christensen. Your narrator was Ward Leopold, who invites you to listen again 1 week from now, same night, time, and station, for a further fascinating half-hour presentation of A Matter of Luck, a Donovan Joyce production.